Round 5 of the 2016 FF1M Championship comes to you from a brand new venue, the Aragon circuit in Spain, and for this I'm being joined by Joseph Willows from Willows Racing.
Hello, it has been a very, very long time since I was last in the commentary box, but I'm here again. How are you doing, James?
I'm doing quite well in the racing world, because a quick recap of the last race, Kevin Magnussen from 15th on the grid took his first FF1M win, which was a nice surprise for me.
Yeah, it was.
Things not going so well for you, unfortunately, though.
No, it's the complete polar opposite of what you had at the last race, and yeah, it's just been a season it's just been a terrible season for me.
Yeah, I think my theory is the ERS resets, because I think the Ilmo had quite a good ERS system last season, but it seems to have done you quite a bit of harm, but
yeah,
hopefully we can get it turned around for you.
Yeah, and it doesn't help as well that I've missed a couple of deadlines along the way as well, which really has held us back as well, but yeah, it's just been a season so far to forget, really, and I just don't see how it's going to turn around.
It's at the point where you're thinking of giving up your manufacturer status as well. Are you still contemplating on that, or
yeah,
still contemplating?
Yeah, it's no secret that we are currently contemplating at the moment, but yeah, it's just not been great at the moment, and you know, the last few years with Ilmo have not been great either, so who knows really, maybe it's time to move on, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, and the starting grid for this, we got Lewis Hamilton on pole position, and joining him is his teammate Cooper Lee on the front row. That's Hamilton's 28th career pole position. A good performance for Daniel Ricciardo, third on the grid for Andrew Racing, ahead of Sergio Perez, who was second last time out at Mugello. And Thomas Gonzalez fifth in the other Tornado, and another standout for Antonio Felix da Costa. He's in sixth, and showing that Andrews are particularly quick this weekend. Kevin Magnussen, the Mugello race winner, is in seventh, ahead of Felipe Massa in one of the Meisters. Then Nico Rosberg qualifying down in ninth, not quite as quick as usual. Could be that Pedersen have gone a bit race setup heavy. Completing the top 10 is Raikkonen. Then Nico Hülkenberg, unlucky to suffer an engine failure at Mugello. He could have finished third. Roman Grosjean 12th on the grid, the highest of the Megatron runners. Then Robert Kubica 13th in the Gajera, ahead of Nicholas Latifi 14th. And then row 8, shake and bake, Sebastian Vettel. His engine blew up at Mugello. Outside shot of points maybe, but a bit of a long shot. And then Alonso 16th in the other Exolite. Jean-Eric Verne 17th in the other Gajera, ahead of Valtteri Bottas. 1T2Rs, that's a spelling error. Itsuki Yoshida in 19th on the grid, and Max Verstappen, highest of the Willows, in 20th. And the back row filled by Carlos Sainz in the other GRM and Stoffel Vandoorne.
At least only one is on the back row this time around, but yeah, it's still dire.
Just the one. And I want to get your... Well, we'll get into the race start first, but there's quite a lot to uncover from the previous Mugello meeting, including tyres and setup boosts. But for now, we've got the race start coming up, 5 lights are on, and the 5 lights go out. And which of the two Mitchells gets away well? Looks like Hamilton's had the best starts from pole position into turn 1, and look at Cooper Lee looking to defend his position from Daniel Ricciardo as further back. Everyone has got through safely.
Yep, very clean indeed. Hamilton looks like he's got away now from Daniel Ricciardo, and strangely enough, as I've noticed on the left-hand side, he's the only one on the soft tyres compared to everyone else.
Yep, just the one on softs, and then we've got 6 on mediums. That's Cooper Lee, Rosberg, Latifi, Vettel, Vandoorne and Verstappen. So both Willows going the medium route, as are the 2 Pedersens. And into what is quite a corkscrew style corner. I want to get your views on the Aragon circuit, because I think you're quite interested in circuit design.
Yes, it's one of my favourite tracks actually, Aragon is. It's actually my favourite Spanish track. I prefer this more than Barcelona, to be honest, and personally, in my honest opinion, this should be the venue for the Spanish Grand Prix, because I just think it's got a lot more character than what Barcelona has, really, and I think it provides a lot more overtaking opportunities than what Barcelona has, and it's not really a Mickey Mousey course, in my opinion, unless you want to count the hairpin down at the bottom of the track, which follows into a quick right-left chicane, but apart from that, it's quite a nice flowing track, and definitely one that can produce quite a lot of racing.
The hairpin providing a very good overtaking opportunity near the end of the lap, and there's one right there, Sergio Perez taking Cooper Lee, who also lost out to the other Tornado. So we've got both Tornadoes on the move in the early stages. As further back, we've got Yoshida versus one of the X-Lights taking Alonso. That's a brave effort from Yoshida.
The X-Lights don't seem to have good pace at the moment around here, surprisingly.
No, I think it's a Megatron thing. I think since Brazil, Megatrons have not been particularly quick, as one of the runners, Grosjean, was under pressure from Kubica, has got some action here. One of the Andrews. Oh no, contact! That's Cooper Lee being spun round by Da Costa.
Yeah, disaster indeed, and this is one of the corners where you could expect a lot of contact from the other support races that we've seen around here, including the hairpin, but this one is the most likely one, and yeah, you could say a little bit ambitious there.
Yeah, just a bit too much speed going into that corner for Da Costa. As on the back straight, that's Gonzalez versus Ricciardo. That's a battle for second position going into the hairpin.
Yep, indeed, and it looks like Gonzalez is going to take the place, and he is. He's through into what is P2. I wonder if he can try and get a hold of Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, both Tornadoes going well in the early stages of the race, and Sergio Perez looking to justify that by taking Ricciardo into the first corner, and that's third for Perez. And just quick line on strategy, it looks as if we're expecting a mixture of 1 or 2 stops. I think both Tornadoes are a bit light at this stage. Raikkonen has a lot of fuel, but it's not doing him too much harm as he takes Rosberg for 6th.
The Meister's looking pretty strong around here this week, as they've been struggling so far this season, but it looks like they're showing some good pace around here.
Yeah, Meisters seem to be the weakest of the climax runners, but as you say here, it looks a bit better for them. Massa 5th, Raikkonen 6th at the moment, and Kimi on a one-stop strategy as well. If he can hold off the 2 Pedersens, and Rosberg does appear to be on a 2-stop strategy, then could be seeing a decent haul of points for Meister.
Indeed, and but it seems that Raikkonen's got his wits about, because it seems that Rosberg is not giving up at the moment.
Down the back straight, can he have a look into the hairpin? Raikkonen taking the middle, but Rosberg's trying not to have any of that, but Kimi just about holding on. A few lines from the Mugello race last time out. We've got a nerf in setup boosts that the AFIA has announced, because it seemed as if it was quite powerful in the first few races. So it's now capped at pretty much 10 laps, but is that 10 laps per practice session, or is that 10 laps per race weekend? I'll have to find out in due course.
Well, if it helps my team out, then I'm all for it.
Another thing that could help your team out, as we see that's Rosberg versus Raikkonen once again into the hairpin, 6th for Rosberg, is the departure of Pirelli. They've announced their departure, and signs are that we may be having a tyre war next season.
That could be very, very interesting indeed, although in real life I'm a little bit mixed when it comes to a tyre war, because I don't think it really solves the product really. But yeah, I'm very surprised to see Pirelli go, because they have been in this for quite a while, as we're seeing Verne now.
Oh no!
Well, there we go really, and another collision at that, what I like to call Mickey Mouse bus stop, as someone has lost their front wing in the process.
Let's find out. It's teammates and all. Is it going to be... Yeah, that's Kubica hitting Verne at the aftermath. I think Verne was having a look at Grosjean and a bit too much speed into the bus stop.
Rule 1 in racing, never hit your teammate.
Never hit your teammate. And now both Gajera's plummeting down the order right at the back, as Alonso versus Bottas for 12th place. Bottas has done quite well. He's made up his... Oh, goodness me, that was nearly contact between the two. Bit aggressive swerve from Alonso, but he's got it nonetheless.
Jesus Christ, I'm having a nosebleed. That's Van Dorn up in 14th. That's the highest I've seen of Willows this season.
And there's going to be even higher, because Van Dorn has taken advantage of Bottas hitting somebody. I didn't quite catch who that was.
I think it was Alonso. It was Alonso, so he's pretty much got revenge for that little swerve that Fernando did at the hairpin.
And a bit more revenge, and still more revenge. These two are... Well, they're not happy with each other.
No, definitely not, and I would imagine there's going to be some tense discussions after the race. Could there be another collision here at the chicane? Yes, there is.
Deary me, that's Lee versus Yoshida, so any hopes of points for Yoshida have gone down the drain, and Lee's fight back stunted a little bit, as that's a Gajera fight back. That's Verne against Grosjean for 16th.
Yeah, indeed. Sometimes, I don't know if it's you, but from a distance, it makes it so hard to tell the difference between an Exolite and a Gajera, because they've got the same colour.
Yeah, red with a bit of black, and yeah, not much else. They got something similar going on with GRM and Shake and Bake. They're blue and white.
Good job I moved away from red.
The red of 2014, and then you've stuck with the red in the FF1M season, and so far Alvarez is doing a good job for you.
He is indeed. I rated him very highly, of course, in the past, and he's definitely proved it at the moment, although I'm a little bit disappointed with Ocon at the moment this season. I thought he'd do a little bit better, considering he's probably one of the most experienced drivers now in FF2M, so yeah, but hopefully he'll get his form back underway. Yeah, and it's a strong partnership anyway, so hopefully you'll be seeing a few good results for Willows Jr. as we see. That's a Gajera looking at one of the GRMs. That is... who is that? It's Kubica versus Bottas for 20th place. Or is it Sainz versus... It's Sainz versus Verne for 14th. Easy mistake to make, because you could easily make that. As Verne's going to go to the inside. It looks like they're going to avoid contact, because Sainz is not going to go defensive, and Verne takes the place easily. That's how you do a move cleanly at that chicane. Yeah, Verne doing it properly this time, as now we're back at the corkscrew. That's still... is this a quick replay of Sainz and Verne? It must be, because... I think that looks like Alonso's helmet, I think. Or is it? No, it's Grosjean. Oh, I've confused a Gajera and an Excelliters into the bus stop. And, oh dear, that's contact between the two. Actually, I think they might have just avoided it. There may have been contact on the exit, but in the beginning part, it looks like Sainz got a little bit scared there of Grosjean. Yeah, it did look like that. As we go on to the main straight with Cooper Lee. We're on lap... This is their 15th lap now. Lee versus Grosjean into the first corner, but Grosjean defending quite heavily and staying ahead for now. For now, indeed, but Lee is definitely going to try and put some pressure on him, that is for sure. As we go through the first series of corners on a circuit designed by Herman Tilke, but with input from none other than Pedro Della Rosa. The world's greatest test driver. Super sub original Pedro Della Rosa. Back to the... And Hamilton starting lap 16 now, and he's not got that much of a lead over Thomas Gonzalez, just 2.8 seconds, and Perez a further 2.1 behind, so pretty close between the top three at the moment. And Rosberg's just taken Ricciardo, I think, that's probably going into the hairpin. He's just up to 4th. Meanwhile, Lee on the inside here of Grosjean into the chicane, and he does it cleanly, and he's up into 15th. And Grosjean down to 16th, so once again Excellite's not doing that very well. As into the pits for his first of 2 stops, Sergio Perez. A very unique pit entrance, it must be said. You're coming in at very high speed, but then you have to slow it all the way down to get around that chicane. A little bit similar to Baku in a way. Yeah, there's a few modern circuits that do that as well. I think Jeddah and Zandvoort do that as well. Probably, it used to have harsher chicanes. I remember Melbourne in the early days had a pretty tight chicane, but then they straightened it out after 2003. Indeed, Perez comes out of the pit, 24 laps of fuel he's got in his wagon, and he's going to come out, looks like in P8 from the looks of it. P8 ahead of the 2 FJRs, Magnussen 9th, Hulkenberg 10th, as Antonio Felix da Costa comes into the pits from 12th place. Yep, so the pit stops thick and fast all underway here. As you can see, there is the gap between Hamilton and Gonzalez, 2.5, but I will throw a caveat in there. Although Gonzalez has been gaining, he's not been gaining too much onto Lewis. Lewis has been keeping the gap whilst it's been coming down. He has been keeping it stable to the point where Gonzalez is not gaining too much, but at the same time, Lewis is coming into the pits at the end of this lap. Yep, and will Gonzalo follow him through, or is he going to take the lead? I think that was just him going through into the race lead, so Gonzalez going through for at least one more lap, maybe a few more depending on how much fuel he's got left. Who's Gonzalo? I thought it was Gonzalez. Gonzalez. Whoops. Oh, well, it's a different driver altogether there. As away in 6.3 seconds goes Lewis Hamilton. Maybe confusing Gonzalez and Alonso because they were teammates last season. Very strong pairing last season, that was. Hamilton's gone the same sort of direction as what Perez has, so it seems that he's going for a similar strategy to what Checo is doing at the moment. So we should be seeing him back into the pits at about 20 or so laps. So lap 38, 39, maybe 40. Perez and Hamilton will be coming back into the pits. He rejoined in 4th place there after his pit stop, just behind Felipe Massa, so technically he finds himself in a Meister sandwich at the moment, as Gonzalez is now going to be pitting. So one more lap further than Hamilton, and Hamilton rejoined in 3rd. Rosberg also made a pit stop and is rejoined in 10th place.
So we'll see how that two-stop strategy works out for him as search for his mechanics, which are obviously colour coordinated, into his box.
Definitely colour coordinated. No mismatches here.
And I think there's a GRM exiting the pits as well, so he's nearly a lap down. It must be Bottas. He's had a bit of a mare of a race, although GRM have had a bit of a mare of a season. Just the 2 points.
Same strategy Gonzalez is doing to Hamilton. 24 laps he's taken on as well, so I would expect again maybe he'll pit a lap later than Hamilton once again. Ricciardo goes through, but where is Lewis? There's Lewis coming out of turn 1, and I think Lewis should stay ahead, which he does.
Not by much. But enough, as Ricciardo, he's one-stopping in this race. He had quite a bit of fuel left. There he is. He's still got another 11.7 laps of fuel in his tank. So that should take him to about lap 30-ish.
So that suggests to me then he might be on a one-stop then. So Hamilton and Gonzalez have got to overtake him if they want to win this race today.
And let's see the gap as he crosses the line. 2.1 it was before this lap ended, and it's 1.6, so they're definitely gaining on the Andrew of Ricciardo. As into his pits comes Hulkenberg. Is this a bit late for a two-stop, and it's a bit early for a one-stop, so I'm a bit intrigued as to what he's going to do here.
Only one way to find out as he pulls into his box, as let's see what fuel he's taking on. And, well, it took a while to get the tyres on there. Seems to be a little bit interesting. 35 laps, so he's on lap 26, so that should get him to the end of the race, I think. Yep,
so it must be that both FJRs are one-stopping in this race, and Magnussen up in 7th for now. But I think Cooper Lee's into the pits at this lap. You can see Hamilton's indicators red. That means his teammates come into pits. I learned that from yourself.
Yes, it's very. I'm glad you learnt about that, and I also picked up as well that you've learnt about how the garages sometimes work when there's a pit stop battle, because it seems to be like there seems to be an advantage when it comes to the garage that's closest to the pit entrance. So
yeah, they're unusually courteous when it comes to the pit stops and letting people through in the traffic.
Yeah, indeed. Look like Hamilton went defensive there, because look now, Gonzalez is all over the back of him. I did notice when they came out the pits that Gonzalez was a lot closer than before they made their pit stops.
And he's definitely closing in that gap as Magnussen comes into the pits for his only stop. And I think we've got Raikkonen and Latifi one-stopping as well, because they've yet to pit. So, interesting mix of strategies going on. And at this moment, Hamilton versus Gonzalez, potentially for the race win, depending on if they can overtake Ricciardo quickly.
At the moment, they've not been able to, although they have been keeping up with the Australian, but it looks like Gonzalez might try and line up for a move into this infamous bus stop chicane. Let's hope they can keep it clean.
Hamilton defending very hard, and Gonzalez being sensible and backing out of that one. So his next opportunity at the exit of the bus stop section. Got a tightish right and an even tighter left onto the long back straight.
It's a bit bizarre for Gonzalez to back out, because usually he's quite aggressive in this series, but it seems like he's playing the patient game on this one, but now he's got a good run heading down into this hairpin.
That's a good top speed on that Climax engine Tornado, and quite easily overhauling the Mugen in the back of the Mitchell, so possibly that they're running a bit of a higher air setting, a Tornado.
Yep, but he is through. Now let's see how quickly he can try and dispose Ricciardo, because Lewis has not been able to gain any ground onto the Australian at the moment.
Into the first corner, and he's got 1.4 seconds to make up, and lost a bit of time to Ricciardo on that lap, but no doubt Gonzalez will try and gain some of that back. Is this coming back at him? Yes, it is. That is Hamilton back at Gonzalez. Contact between the two at the first corner.
Well, that is a disaster, really, and that's just thrown it right into Ricciardo's hands, who's just come into the pits, of course.
Absolutely, and Smooth Perez ahead of them both, so now Sergio Perez is in the lead of the race. And let's have a look here. So that's Ricciardo stuck behind one of the Exolites, and he's just come into the pits. So Gonzalez lost a bit of time there.
Yeah, he had to lift off, and Lewis took advantage of that, and Gonzalez, clearly a bit aggressive, tried to defend the inside, and, well, given the nature of that corner, it was always going to end in tears, and it might have cost both of them a chance of victory here today.
A bit of a clumsy racing incident, although Hamilton was understeering a bit at the apex, but, yeah, we'll call that 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yep, but Perez is now in the lead, and he's not going to be stopping for at least another 10 laps or so, I'd imagine.
Yep, and he has already made one of his pit stops, so should be using this to pull away from the field, but there he is, putting a lap on Valtteri Bottas as Robert Kubica. That is 20th place versus Fernando Alonso down the back straight. Kubica's made 2 stops, so one of them was to replace a front wing and one of them was scheduled.
Verstappen, I noticed as well, talking about my drivers, he looks like he's on a 1 stop at the moment, so he could get himself just outside the top 10 if he keeps this up, which I would actually take that given the car we've got, as Da Costa puts a move there on Nico Hülkenberg. That's
for 10th place, and Van Dorn's up in 15th at the moment, ahead of quite a few of the Megatron runners, so he's done quite well, I'd say.
So maybe there is a little bit of progress here, but yeah, it's I don't know if we'll have to wait and see really what my decision is about the engine situation, but who knows really what this result could do at the moment. But yeah, I think I need a little bit more convincing at the moment, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, I think the deadline is the end of this race and going into Monaco, because that's when the entry period opens. But I'm sure me and you could do a deal for how much I'll let you use.
Well, we shall see. We shall see.
I'm
opening up my options at the moment. As Perez will be coming into the pits at the end of this lap.
From the race lead, and worth mentioning, we've had 4 different winners in the first 4 races, and if Perez stays in the lead, then he could make that 5 out of 5.
Something F1 can't replicate in real life at the moment because it's just been Red Bulls.
Although I have to say, it did take a while for the car to remain stationary, because we saw the front wheel spinning for a couple of seconds or so. So that certainly won't have done Perez much good.
I did notice that with Hülkenberg as well when he came into the pits early on, so I guess that seems to be a thing around this track, I don't know.
Could be, and now this is important because Perez is coming out of the pits just ahead of the one stopping Ricciardo. That is a crucial move for Perez there.
So as soon as Hamilton and Gonzalez pit, unless they've been trying to close back in onto Checo, which I did notice they have been, because it was 8 seconds, then you should imagine that Perez should come back in the lead once the top 3 make their pit stops.
Yep, we'll see the gap between Perez and Hamilton, who's into the pits in this lap. Hamilton only 1.2 seconds ahead of Gonzalez, and look at Rosberg in 3rd. He's done quite well to get up there from 9th on the grid.
Just noticed a very cheeky sponsorship there. Lamborghini. Kind of reminds me of the time when we were allowed engine manufacturers rather than just engine makers.
I think that's Lamborghini tractors rather than Lamborghini cars, and that might be a reference to some of the earlier sponsors of Mitchell in 2012 when Flymo did a deal with them.
Just sneaking a sponsor in there like what Force India did with Kingfisher.
Yep. As Hamilton exits in 6.6 seconds, and again his front wheels were spinning for a bit before the mechanics got to work, so maybe it's a trait of this circuit, and that's important for him to get out ahead of Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, indeed, but importantly, he did still come out behind Ricciardo and Perez, so he is on fresh tyres. I don't know if he's got enough to possibly gain back onto them, but we shall wait and see.
Well, Ricciardo, I estimate about 5 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton at this stage, so I think it's doable for Lewis to get back to 4th position, maybe 3rd once Rosberg makes his pit stop.
And let's not forget, he's the only one on the soft tyres in this race.
Yep. And he'll be using that to some benefit, although maybe a bit worn down once the stint's done. I've just noticed Yoshida is showing as having made 0 stops. I think he's retired from the race.
Unseen by the cameras. A typical trait there from AJ, if I must say so, because I think he did the same with one of my drivers this season. I think that just shows how bad our car has been this season. But anyway, Gonzalez is now into the pits.
Yeah, that was Van Dorn in Brazil. He had that incident with Kubica, but it never came up on the screen that he'd actually retired from that incident. We did see. I think it was actually our drivers having an incident in Melbourne, Verstappen and Magnussen.
Yeah, and I remember Courtney being quite cruel about Verstappen and that race, so yeah, I decided to keep my mouth shut on that one, because I do think even in real life Verstappen gets criticism that he doesn't deserve. But anyway, back to the action. Gonzalez, is he going to come out in front of that Meister there? I think he'll just about do so, and yes he does, but Raikkonen's right on him.
Yep, so Gonzalez has jumped Kimi as well, and now this is the order. So Perez leads, having made both his stops. Ricciardo second, and in fact that's a battle for second between Ricciardo and Hamilton down the back straight.
So maybe the race victory is not over yet for Lewis, because he's already caught up to Ricciardo, and we've got, 12 and a bit laps to go. So I think it is doable for Lewis here, as he's now on the inside of the Australian into the hairpin, and he gets the move done. He's up into P2.
P2 for Lewis, and now next on Ricciardo's victim list is Thomas Gonzalez. Right behind him, what's the gap? It's just 0.4 of a second, and Hamilton's got 9.1 seconds to make up on Sergio Perez. So with only 12 laps to go, and both having made 2 stops, it'd be a bit of an ask for Lewis, but I'm sure I'll give it a good go.
Again, he is on the soft tyre, so in theory he should be better around the corners compared to Checo.
And as for the rest of the top 8, we've got Nicholas Latifi up in 6th place. That's a very good effort from him. He could get his first points of the season, but 1 stopping versus Rosberg's 2, as Gonzalez has a look at Ricciardo into the corkscrew. And next corner to make an opportunity will be the bus stop.
Yep, let's hope he can keep it clean into this part of the track, as he's really gaining around this long swooping left-hander. So let's see if he can get the move done as he's in the slipstream, looking to the inside. Ricciardo doesn't put up too much of a defence. You can clearly see that Gonzalez is quicker, and Gonzalez is back into the podium.
Up to 3rd. So now is there going to be a battle for 2nd between Hamilton and Gonzalez? We'll find out over the next few laps as Jean-Eric Vergne retires from the race. We got the first Mugen failure of the season. It's a gearbox, although not an engine, but car failure for Mugen, as we got Magnussen versus Massa, the battle for the final points between these two. Into the hairpin, Magnussen defending up the inside, but he's a bit wide, but Massa trying to get the outside into the fiddly fast little chicane. Well, he's going to get him, I think, but Magnussen back into the slipstream.
Yep, indeed, as they now make their way onto the pit straight. Another overtaking opportunity presents itself, but Massa is going to stay ahead for the moment and hold on to that final points place at this stage.
So up to 8th goes Felipe Massa. Now, what have we got here? We've got Latifi versus Rosberg, approaching the bus stop chicane. Now, this doesn't look good because... Oh, Latifi, I think he wants that 6th place, even though Rosberg is the championship contender.
Trying to prove that he's the better number 6 out of the two of them.
Yeah, both had number 6 as their race numbers, didn't they?
Yeah, obviously Latifi's got a different number in this because number 6 is currently reserved by Nico Rosberg. I wonder if that will change though after Rosberg retires after this season. But anyway, looks like Rosberg, the more experienced driver, is going to go for the move on Goat Tifi over here as they go side by side into the hairpin. I had to throw that in at some point, but he goes through into 6th.
Yeah, so Nico, now his last target. How far up the road is he? Is Kimi Raikkonen. He's not that far, as Raikkonen putting a lap on one of the Excelites of Fernando Alonso, and Rosberg feeling the need to defend a little bit from Latifi, but we are on the final lap, and into the hairpin goes Sergio Perez. Only had 1 win in his FF1M career, and that came in Canada 2013. Make that 2, because out of the final corner and taking the first win of his season, Tornado 2nd, Sergio Perez takes the win at the Spanish Grand Prix.
Great drive for him, and 5 different winners in the first 5 races.
A Pedersen battle not over yet. Latifi coming back at Rosberg. Look at this.
He's showing that he's not going to get phased by his more experienced teammate, and he gets back up to 6th, and I think he is going to keep it. So Latifi, well deserved for him, he's going to get P6 at the line, although Rosberg tried to have a go, but in the end Latifi got it. Latifi
taking 6th, so there's confirmation of Sergio Perez's 2nd career victory, his first for Tornado, taking advantage of the collision between Hamilton and Gonzalez at the first corner, and from there didn't look back. Hamilton 2nd and Gonzalez 3rd, so 2 Tornadoes on the podium. That will boost their Constructors' Championship bid. And as for the rest of them, 1 stopping Ricciardo and Raikkonen, and Latifi actually 4th, 5th and 6th, Rosberg 7th and Massa in 8th, so both Meisters in the top 8.
Surprisingly enough, Lewis did not gain onto Perez as much as I was anticipating. Really, I honestly thought with him having the freshest off the tyres, he would have had a go at trying to catch up to Perez. But in the end, Perez just had enough pace to keep that 9-second gap.
Yep, and taking a useful 12 points. And remember that the Mitchell team are only limited to 20% of Earth's race usage, whereas Tornado can use as much as they want. So maybe that had a factor in it.
Perhaps indeed, and it just goes to show as a constructor there are some downsides to it at times, depending on which manufacturer you go with in terms of who you want to be supplied with. It can have a down effect because you might not get the full use of hers.
And worth mentioning that even considering my Mugello win, both drivers outside the points, so there is still a bit of work to do in the FJR camp. So probably the 5th fastest car, I reckon, maybe 6th, but both finishing, so that'll do. As Lewis Hamilton leads the championship by 6 points now from Gonzalez. That is an actual extension from 4 to 6 points, the gap, because Hamilton was 2nd, Gonzalez was 3rd, but Perez now shooting up to 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, and Tornado actually take the lead in the Constructors' Championship. They're 2-point gap over Mitchell.
And I'd rather not read who's in last place because we are the only team on 0 points.
Yeah, I mean, I do hope that it gets a bit better for you as the season goes along, because, yeah. Well,
something just dropped in the background of what I was speaking there. You might have got that on the microphone. But hopefully things change for us. But it's looking a little bit dire at the moment.
Nice battle for 3rd developing between Pedersen, Andrew and FJR. So that was FF1M's return to the Spanish Grand Prix, although a new venue. Now we switch from Spain to the Riviera as we go to Monaco, for the legendary street circuit that is the Monte Carlo Street Circuit. So from the two of us, we shall see you then.
Goodbye.